I have a warning for everyone. Be very careful when walking alone at night. You might run into a pyromaniac, just like what happened to the protagonist of this anime. The story begins with high school student Sakura, a seemingly normal girl whose life changes overnight. While returning home one evening, she sees a mysterious boy in a park and is shocked to witness him burning people alive with blue flames. She immediately stops the bus she is on, finds a police officer, and brings him to the scene to rescue the victims. However, when they arrive, there is nothing to see. No flames, no bodies, no traces of any crime. She tries to explain what she saw, but the officer finds her story impossible to believe and assumes she is joking. The next morning, a new transfer student joins Sakura's class. It is the same boy from the night before. He introduces himself as Oogami Rei, acting as if nothing unusual had happened. Sakura greets him but immediately starts questioning him about what she saw in the park. Rei pretends to have no idea what she is talking about and outright lies, claiming that he wasn't even near the area that night. Sakura doesn't believe him at all. After school, while walking home, Sakura hears reports of homeless people being attacked by a criminal gang known as Falcon. As she walks through the park, she sees Rei again, and they discuss whether criminals should face punishment. Rei's perspective is simple: criminals should be eliminated. Later that night, Sakura returns to the park to feed a stray dog she often looks after. However, she finds the area filled with gang members attacking another innocent person. Instead of calling the police, she decides to fight them herself. Even though she knows martial arts, she is outnumbered and quickly overpowered, knocked down and restrained. The stray dog she was trying to help jumps in and bites one of the gang members, but they show no mercy and kill the dog. Sakura, terrified, realizes she might be next, but then Rei appears, drawing the gang's attention. Rei gives them a choice: surrender to the police or be reduced to ashes. The gang laughs and attacks him, but in an instant, Rei torches them all with his blue flames. He even tries to burn Sakura, but she wakes up the next day in her room, completely unharmed. Confused, Sakura recalls being attacked by Rei. So how did she end up safely at home? Determined to get answers, she confronts Rei at school again, but he continues acting innocent. Around others, he behaves like a normal student, making her question if he did something to her memory. To avoid putting her best friend in danger, she decides to distance herself from her. Meanwhile, in a different location, another event unfolds. A red-haired boy named Yuki receives an order to assassinate a high-profile target named Hitomi, a man with the power to control electricity. Their battle begins but is quickly interrupted by another power user, a man named Kanda, who can manipulate water and ice. He creates a barrier of ice, helping Hitomi escape. Back at school, Sakura walks home with Rei, pressing him for answers once more. This time, he finally admits the truth. He was at the park and he did kill those gang members. He then reveals that he is part of a covert government operation. He is a code breaker, someone who does not exist. His mission is to eliminate people beyond redemption using his deadly abilities. To prove his point, he reaches out toward her face, covering his hand in flames. The moment he touches her, her bag catches fire, but when his hand brushes against her directly, she is completely unharmed. For the first time, his flames fail to ignite someone. Shocked, Rei realizes there is something unique about her. She cancels his powers. He warns her that if she tells anyone about this, they will be in danger. Sakura makes up her mind. She must stop Rei from killing more people. Later, Rei receives a call from an unknown woman who questions why Sakura has not been eliminated yet. He admits that he tried to burn her multiple times, but for some reason, she is immune to his flames. The next morning, as Sakura walks to school, she encounters a girl named Nene Fujiwara. As soon as Rei sees her, he has an unusual reaction, as if she is an old enemy. He even briefly considers attacking her, but Sakura interferes immediately. At the end of the day, Rei brings Sakura a stray puppy, seemingly as an apology for the dog he killed earlier at the park. However, his next mission soon takes precedence. The target this time is a drug cartel, operating under corrupt police protection. Posing as a drug dealer, Rei infiltrates the gang's hideout, but once inside, he immediately starts eliminating everyone. Even the corrupt police officers involved in the operation are not spared. Sakura, desperate to stop him, intervenes, but he knocks her unconscious with a single punch to the stomach. Later, one of the gang's leaders tries to escape in a car, but just as he speeds away, Ray jumps onto the vehicle's hood, ready to burn him alive. At this moment, another code breaker appears. Toki arrives at the scene and uses his abilities to manipulate metal, crushing the car and killing the gangster inside. Sakura later wakes up at her family's doorstep, confused again. This was already the second time she had lost consciousness and mysteriously ended up back home. She lies to her parents, trying to keep them out of danger. The following morning, Toki is waiting for her outside, acting unusually friendly. On their way to school, he suddenly leans in close, giving off a playful but unsettling vibe. Before anything happens, Ray appears and tries to kick him, forcing Toki to dodge. It turns out the two know each other from previous operations, but rather than allies, they are rivals. A fight nearly breaks out, but when Sakura steps between them, they both take their own separate paths. Later that day, Toki unexpectedly shows up at Sakura's school, interrupting class. His excuse? He wanted to inspect the school, but the real reason is soon revealed. He came to visit his older sister, Nene. The issue? She claims she doesn't have a brother. Toki's expression changes for the first time, and it becomes clear that he knew she wouldn't recognize him. That night, Ray and Toki team up for another assassination job, with Sakura following them in secret. Their next target is a corrupt politician. To reach him, they infiltrate a high-security building, taking out numerous armed guards along the way. However, they soon face two elite bodyguards with advanced technology, allowing them to manipulate water. Their power source is hidden inside special backpacks, but these backpacks run out of energy quickly. I have a warning for everyone. Be very careful when walking alone at night. You might run into a pyromaniac, just like what happened to the protagonist of this anime. The story begins with high school student Sakura, a seemingly normal girl whose life changes overnight. While returning home one evening, she sees a mysterious boy in a park and is shocked to witness him burning people alive with blue flames. She immediately stops the bus she is on. Even though the villain's motive was to save his daughter, his methods were twisted and cruel. Ray's conclusion was simple: if something is evil, it must be incinerated. He burns the man alive right in front of his daughter, claiming that this would serve as motivation for her to become stronger so that she could one day take revenge on him. With the heads of the facility now eliminated, the remaining children are transferred to another research center under the control of Eden's special forces. As soon as the mission ends, the scene shifts to Toki having dinner with the Prime Minister, who is revealed to be his father. During their conversation, Toki reminds his father why he originally chose the path of becoming a code breaker. His actions were justified because he wanted to protect his sister from the cruelty of their father and the dark world they live in. The next day, as Sakura and Ray walk to school, their journey is interrupted by another Eden agent, a young woman riding a motorcycle named Rue Hachiuji. She delivers a direct order from Eden's highest ranks to Ray: protect Sakura by any means necessary. Coincidentally, on the same day, Ray notices something odd. His classmates are acting suspiciously. He suddenly wonders if his code breaker identity has been exposed. However, it turns out to be a misunderstanding. The class had actually been preparing a surprise welcome party for him. While the students celebrate, two important events occur elsewhere. First, Toki experiences intense pain, collapsing in a deserted alley for unknown reasons. Second, the Prime Minister receives troubling news: 43 Eden agents have mysteriously disappeared while searching for Hitomi. Soon after, the missing agents are found, but they have been turned into mindless puppets, controlled by electricity. Their target? Sakura. At that moment, Ray must fulfill his mission to protect her, but he unexpectedly finds himself at a disadvantage and gets cornered. Fortunately, reinforcements arrive. Professor Kanda, who had been posing as a teacher, joins the battle, armed with a machine gun. She turns out to be an Eden agent as well. Ray isn't the only one getting backup. Yukihina appears, using his sonic powers to defeat several of the controlled agents. Another unexpected ally also reveals himself: a fellow student named Haika. Haika, the eccentric white-haired student, always seemed detached from reality, often spotted drinking tea in random places. However, his ability is dangerous. He can manipulate light. Using his powers, he traps many of the enemy forces, ensuring Sakura's safety. Meanwhile, in the alley where Toki had collapsed, something bizarre is happening. His body starts shrinking, as if he's reverting in age. Back at school, Rei also suddenly collapses. The reason soon becomes clear. According to Haika, every code breaker has a severe weakness. If they overuse their abilities, they enter a state called lost form. The effects vary for each person. For Rei, it's hypothermia. With the battle over, Sakura takes everyone to her home so they can recover. When they arrive, they are greeted by her father, whose friendly demeanor hides a shocking truth. He is the head of one of Japan's most influential Yakuza groups. Inside, they discover that Toki is already there, in his younger form. His actual weakness is age regression. At that moment, it becomes clear. Sakura is now a direct target of Hitomi. The next morning, Rue arrives at Sakura's home to assist in her protection. However, their defenses quickly fall apart when Hitomi himself invades her house, effortlessly defeating the Yakuza guards. Despite Rei, Toki, and the other code breakers working together, Hitomi overpowers all of them. Just as he prepares to finish Rei, Sakura shields him, completely unharmed by the electric attack. This confirms what has now become obvious. Sakura has an ability that negates code breaker powers. Despite losing the battle, Hitomi chooses to withdraw, revealing that his true goal was not to eliminate them. His real plan was a diversion. While the code breakers were busy protecting Sakura, Hitomi had already executed his real objective, kidnapping the Prime Minister. Toki, despite his personal issues with his father, knows they have no choice but to stage a rescue. With the Prime Minister's life at stake, they must come up with a plan to stop Hitomi. Before they leave, Sakura tends to the injured members of her Yakuza family. While helping them, she stumbles upon a photo album and makes a shocking discovery. She was adopted. The Yakuza boss found her abandoned at their doorstep, covered in blood. Meanwhile, outside the house, Yuki has transformed into a small kitten. This is his unique lost form. He doesn't seem to mind, instead casually chatting about Hitomi's past. According to Yuki, Hitomi was once a very kind person who cared deeply for his fellow code breakers. With their strategy set, the next phase of their mission begins. Kanda is the first to act. She infiltrates Hitomi's group by pretending to join them. However, just as she finds an opening to strike him, she is betrayed. One of her teammates turns on her, destroying a bridge under her feet. While using her shadow manipulation to prevent herself from falling, the traitor attacks her, knocking her unconscious. At the same time, Hitomi's second-in-command executes his own plan. This man kidnaps Sakura and delivers her directly to Hitomi, offering her up in exchange for a place in their organization. Unfortunately for him, Hitomi's forces also have a spy in the code breakers group. Just moments later, Hitomi's hideout location is leaked to all of their enemies in captivity. Hitomi introduces himself to Sakura. Immediately, she confronts him about his crimes and the destruction he has caused. At that moment, Rei, Yukihina, and the others arrive to rescue her, but they are stopped by Kanda, who has been brainwashed by Hitomi. As Rei prepares to eliminate her, Sakura stops him, revealing that her ability isn't just immunity. It also neutralizes Hitomi's mental control over people. With Kanda freed from Hitomi's influence, the villain reveals his grand plan. His true goal is to expose the code breakers to the world. He plans to detonate bombs across Japan and publicly execute the Prime Minister at noon, forcing the government to acknowledge the existence of superpowered beings. Rei refuses to let this happen and attacks Hitomi with his flames, but before their fight can begin, Yukihina intervenes, using his ice manipulation to suppress Rei's fire. Rei is completely outmatched. Toki arrives just in time to prevent them from being frozen solid, but the battle destroys the hideout's infrastructure. As Hitomi and his team escape, Sakura manages to sneak into their getaway vehicle. Her goal is simple: convince them to stop before it's too late. During the drive, a flashback reveals Hitomi's past At 16 years old, he was recruited into Eden's program and quickly became one of their strongest operatives. He was trained by Hika, who was his superior at the time. Hitomi also had a partner who was killed on a mission. This death deeply traumatized him, making him resent Eden because to the organization, operatives were nothing more than disposable tools. 6 years earlier, Hitomi participated in an anti-terrorist mission alongside several code breakers. The operation was incredibly difficult, and in the end, he was the only survivor, despite achieving the mission's objective. The leader of the terrorist faction managed to escape, but due to his exceptional performance, Hitomi was promoted and given the responsibility of training the new recruits: Toki, Rue, Yuki, and Rei. Among them, Rei was the one who concerned him the most. The blue-flamed warrior excelled at eliminating targets, but never considered the consequences of his actions. His mindset was dangerous to society, and this kept Hitomi constantly wary. During one mission, the recruits were sent on a rescue operation alongside Hitomi. After successfully completing it, Hitomi gave a strict lesson to Rei, explaining that Eden's mission wasn't just about eliminating threats, but also about protecting those in need. And his final assignment, Hitomi finally avenged his fallen comrades by eliminating the leader of the terrorist group that had once wiped them out. However, after doing so, he uncovered a horrific truth. The leaders of the Code Breaker project had hidden a cruel secret. Using their powers drastically shortened their lifespan. In other words, they were never seen as heroes, only disposable weapons. And once they ran out of ammunition, they were discarded without a second thought. This catastrophic revelation served as Hitomi's breaking point. It was the final push he needed to betray Eden and expose its corruption. The final confrontation following his resolve to change the world, Hitomi made a public declaration. He would assassinate the Prime Minister and wipe out 50% of Japan's population by detonating a widespread series of bombs. With time running out, the heroes had to act quickly. Hika took charge of disabling the explosives, using his sonar abilities to locate and neutralize them before detonation. Meanwhile, Toki and Rei made their way to Heaven's Tower, where Hitomi was holding both Sakura and the Prime Minister hostage. Upon arriving, Rei immediately confronted Hitomi, but once again, his firepower was not enough to counter Hitomi's electricity. During the battle, Hitomi revealed his ultimate goal. He wasn't causing destruction for its own sake. Instead, his intent was to provoke society into acknowledging the existence of code breakers and create a new world where powered individuals wouldn't be treated as disposable tools. Elsewhere, Toki was locked in combat against his aim, a senior code breaker with a ridiculously overpowered ability, the power to create and manipulate objects at will. Not only that, his aim could generate physical clones of himself, each one just as strong as the original. Toki was completely outmatched. However, the battle took an unexpected turn when his aim lost interest and abandoned the fight after being distracted by an innocent puppy. Meanwhile, the Japanese government mobilized forces to evacuate civilians and lock down areas where the bombs were placed. Yukihina infiltrated Eden's secret research lab, likely in an effort to rescue the children held captive. However, his progress was halted by Kanda, a former ally who had somehow survived the bridge collapse and was now back in action. The battle nears its end at the tower. Hitomi offered Rei a final chance to switch sides, to abandon Eden and help create a better world for those with supernatural abilities. Rei flatly refused his offer. But there was a problem. Rei had already overused his flames and was running out of energy. Sensing his imminent victory, Hitomi charged forward for the final blow. However, Sakura once again threw herself in front of Rei, shielding him. This time, Hitomi grabbed her by the throat, squeezing tightly, with no intention of letting go as he tightened his grip. The countdown to the bomb detonation reached its final seconds. Hitomi grinned with satisfaction as the timer hit 0, but nothing happened. Thanks to leaked information, Hika had managed to locate the control vehicle responsible for synchronizing the bomb detonations, shutting down the entire explosive network before it could activate. Realizing his carefully planned attack had failed, Hitomi attempted to escape. Rei and the others gave chase, but Hitomi was one step ahead, successfully evading them to the tower. His aim prepared to re-enter the battle, but before he could interfere, Rue enveloped the entire transmission tower with her shadows, preventing any remote detonation attempts. with every option. Exhausted, Hitomi had only one thing left to do: fight Rei one last time. Rei, now fully recovered, removed his limiter ring, unleashing his full power for the first time. The battle escalated to its peak, with both warriors using everything at their disposal, and in the end, Rei outmatched his former teacher, delivering a final, overwhelming strike. Hitomi, now physically drained, started losing control over his own abilities. His body began to collapse from within. In his final moments, he pleaded one last time that he wanted code breakers to reveal themselves to the public, to tell the world the truth about their sacrifices and heroism. But just before he could get his wish, the Prime Minister delivered a cold response. He stated outright, "That will never happen." As he took his dying breath, Hitomi attempted one last attack to assassinate the Prime Minister. But Rei stopped him before he could finish. With Hitomi now gone, the shadowy operations of the government would continue as usual. All of the code breakers' work would remain hidden, and the official credit for defeating the terrorist threats would be given to the Japanese police. The aftermath: shortly after, the Prime Minister and his aim were seen discussing their real objective. It turned out that everything had been planned, from Hitomi's rebellion to the final battle. The government's true goal was to force Rei to unlock his full potential and use Sakura as a failsafe to counter him in case he became uncontrollable. With the conflict over, the code breakers were reassigned to new missions, continuing their work in the shadows. The final scene shows them tracking a new enemy, a mysterious man with the ability to control wind. Their battle may have ended for now, but the war in the shadows never stops. And so, the world of Code Breaker continues, with even bigger dangers awaiting in the future.